Now, one of the last things that we need to do to finish out our elevations is compose them all together on a sheet. Now, this might be on one sheet, it might be on two sheets. It really depends on how big the house is. And make sure you pay close attention to the rubric, because you'll notice that it says the front elevation needs to be 3/8 inch equals a foot. So the scale that mine is at right here isn't going to work out. I'm going to have to make that bigger. And when I do that, we might find that perhaps all of this is too big to simply place on one sheet. I'm probably going to have to move this over. I can move this down, and perhaps I take all three of these, this one, and this one, and I put them on a second sheet. Or maybe I'm able to keep two of these here, just like I've done. It probably would be better to have the main one up on top. That's going to look better. But there, now I've got enough room for that. So where does this one go? We'll come over here, right click, and let's say that you were looking at all views, or that you were looking at just the views. You want to go over here to your sheets, and then right click, and you can create a new sheet. I'll go 22 by 34. It's going to give it some kind of a weird random name. And you just want to right click on it, redo the number, redo the name. In my case, I have a 1, 2, 3. I don't have an A4, and that's because I needed another elevation sheet. Then 5 and 6. If you have a problem where everything's already in order, you might have to go to the end one, right click, rename, and then you can give that a bigger number so that you can go back through and make room for a new sheet like I'm doing. So this one I'm going to rename, and we'll call this A4, and this one would also be elevations, or exterior elevations is probably a better way of naming that. At any rate, I would have to go in here and just take this off. I got to delete that out. I didn't delete my elevation, I just took it off the sheet. And then I'd go back to the other sheet, and we'd go find that view. It's going to be one of the elevations, and I know that it was the back, or no, it wasn't. It was the left, because see, that's what these blue boxes indicate. If there's a blue box, that means it's on a sheet. If there's no blue box, then it can be placed. And now I'm faced with a choice. I don't have very much going on this sheet. So what would I rather do? Leave it at 1/4 inch? Make it smaller? I'm actually allowed to do that. Or maybe this one ought to be as big as 3/8 inch equals a foot too, just because I've got the room for it. Looks like I'm going to have to make some slight adjustments to my datums. But if I feel like it's worthwhile, that's something that can be done. And that's something you can do too. I'm going to shift that over just a little bit. Okay, now, like I said, make sure you go through this rubric as thoroughly as possible. There are many things that say something to the effect of, make sure this is shown at least one time on a sheet. What that means is this. If I go to my first elevations sheet, I've got siding, for example, called out here. Every time I see horizontal lines in another elevation, I'm going to know that's siding. So I don't necessarily have to call that out again. Now, is it wrong if I keep calling it out? Of course not. The more you call it out, the better. But at least if I don't call it out, I know that they can still figure out what it is. At least they can on this sheet. If I go to the next sheet, now that rule no longer applies. Everything here needs to be called out at least one time. That is going to apply to things like your windows, which need to go down to a datum and then up to the top of the window, normally the window framing. Okay, and whoops, be careful, you don't want to accidentally pick a siding line because it will dimension it. Okay, and then you've seen in a different video, I can click here and I can say below top of window, I think I did that lowercase, window header, something to that effect. But that's got to be called out on this sheet, because I can't look around anywhere else on page A4 and find that information. Now on the other one, I can, if I had it here. I would know that everything on this side is set to that same dimension. And of course I would still need to come in here and write the text in below. Okay, and so that's got to be placed on every sheet. And I think my rubric says it's got to be placed on every elevation. I need one window on the front, one window on the side, the other side, and the back, and that would be for both levels, one top and one low. Materials, like I said, they just need to be called out one time per sheet. Another thing that only has to occur once is my foundation. I'm not going to show that in these other views, but I am required to show it here just on the front. Okay, and then the last thing that you may encounter is a problematic elevation where you don't understand why things all of a sudden shifted and they don't look right anymore. If that's the case, just go to your first floor plan, look for the elevation tag that might be inside your house or the elevation tag that's pointing to that strange looking elevation. And what we need to do is just click on the triangle in the front here. Notice where that line is. When I click on the triangle, the line shows up, and that line is actually inside the house. If I click and pull it back out, I've now fixed that elevation. This tag really shouldn't be where it's at, so I'm going to pull that out too. And now when we go look at the elevations, you can see that's all been fixed and repaired. Okay, that should be everything for your elevations. When you're putting together your sheet for composition, just make sure that everything fits, that nothing's on top of each other, and like I said earlier, it's okay to have more than one sheet.